All right, I'm just gonna start talking about myself, why I'm here, why I'm talking about self-advocacy. So I'm a systems engineer. I work on bringing autonomy to existing aircraft at a startup company. I'm the lead controls mentor for 177, so I run both programming and the controls hardware sub-teams. I've been on the team for 5 years. I'm also one of the 2 mentors running and starting up our sibling team, 429. We're still taking name suggestions if you have any. I spent my first 2 years mentoring an all-girls team, and this was super important to me. It's one of the things I am passionate about, which is building up women in STEM. And this whole thing, working on the all-girls team, is kind of what got me thinking about helping students in self-advocacy. One, because I think I'm really bad at it. So I struggled all throughout college, being a woman in engineering, and thinking about how I don't feel like I'm as good as the other students surrounding me. Do I ask for promotions enough? Do I apply to jobs that I'm overqualified for versus ones that I'm almost qualified for that I probably would get? And so as I spent these first 2 years on this girls team, and these girls were having the best experience of their lives, it didn't really matter. We didn't really talk about being a woman in the context of being in the room working on the robot. It came up to talk about how we interact with other teams and things, but I feel like they just had a really good experience, and it wasn't about being a woman in STEM. It was just about being yourself and having the best experience at the individual level. So as these girls were graduating, they were going off into engineering, I just wanted to tell them, be you are going to have good and bad times in college and in your workforce. You are going to feel like you're the secretary for your group. You are going to feel like you're not being heard, but you also have to speak up for yourself. And at the same time, I'm well, how am I supposed to help them do this? Me giving them this advice isn't going to help them. How can they learn this skill set ahead of time going outside of the team? Now, then I left the team, and I moved to 177, where I had a completely different experience. I joined a team that we started off with 90 students. The proportion of girls on the team was less than 20% when we started. Yeah. And so I was just kind of seeing most of the girls were on the MBA team. So I was why aren't there more girls on the robot team? I'd never dealt with this before. I was the only woman, a mentor, who was on any of the robot sub-teams as well. There were some parents on MBA, so I was well, is it that we don't have enough women mentors on our team? So that's kind of how this all came about. So I'm going to give you a little bit more context into self-advocacy and what I mean by it. I'm not so much going to talk about how do we help students speak up for themselves against mentors or if they're in uncomfortable situations. I'm going to focus more on getting kids confidence and reaching for the opportunities and things that they want to do, and not being afraid and not just settling for the ones that they feel like they're already qualified for or they feel like they deserve. So I also understand that the examples that I'm going to give might not apply to 90% of your other teams. And so when you're thinking of this topic of if you want to help your own students with self-advocacy, I would highly advise just making specific goals that are relatable to your team. So throughout this presentation, anytime you see a purple box with the purple border, that is just outlining a specific example that is in reference to one of my 2 goals for my own team. So one of my personal goals is I want more girls to try out for lead roles, to get lead roles, to try out for the drive team, to be on all of the robot sub-teams. At the same time, I am on an 80-person team, and I have a lot of new students who get bored and they don't know how to ask for help, they don't know how to ask for more work. So my secondary goal is I really, really need my new students especially to speak up for themselves and ask for opportunities. All right, so the 3 themes of the rest of the presentation are going to revolve around creating opportunities, building confidence, and then repeat, and give kids practice. These kids, some are great. Some come in and they volunteer for everything. Some kids, you have to really pull it out of them, and they might not even get good at it over those 4 years. It might take 4 years, it might take longer. I'm 30 and I feel like I'm still working on it for myself. So we're going to start off with creating opportunities. So on the screen, you'll see a very exaggerated fake job posting. Seeking entry-level engineer requires 3 years of experience. So I think this was pretty popular on social media, where people were making fun of companies for asking for experience for people who were still new, like create the chicken and the egg scenario. How am I supposed to get the experience, to get the experience, to get the experience, to get the experience? And so this also applies within your job as well. Like, have you ever noticed that some of your coworkers maybe got promoted, not because like they have more skills than you, but they just got more visibility into what they do? Like, they got the opportunity to lead a project and you didn't. So it's kind of recognizing that some people need opportunities to build their skill sets, show off their skill sets, to help them speak out and like say, hey, I did these things, I led these 2 people, I think I could be a manager, I think I could ask for a promotion. So this is about the workforce, but let's bring it to the team. So the same thing happens with students. Again, sometimes you have those kids who will raise their hand right away. You say, hey, who wants to work with me and like work on the drill press, work on this? Sorry, I'm not on the mechanical team. I don't know what the other machines are called. And sometimes you should notice, sometimes it's the same students volunteering over and over again, or they're the first ones to volunteer. And so I'm kind of thinking, as I'm mentoring, like, what about the other students? So how am I trying to get some of the other kids to ask for those opportunities for themselves, and etc. So we're going to do 3 things regarding opportunities. We're going to create more opportunities for kids. We're going to try to announce the opportunities. And this isn't just saying, hey, there's an open driver's practice. This is being more explicit and saying, you are invited to driver's practice. I want you as a new student to show up because you've never done this before, and every kid on the team should try driving the robot once. Like, you have to push them a little. And then the third one is also sharing opportunities. So recognizing when you yourself are maybe being a little bit biased, and maybe you're giving a task to a student because you know they can do it, when maybe you could give the task to a student who could do it, maybe. Or you can have students work together to share the opportunity. All right, so what are we specifically doing on 177? Again, I have 80 kids. I have a really big problem with retention and getting my new students trained. So we're starting a sibling team, and I understand that might not be the most relatable solution for your teams when you're still working on trying to get more kids in the room. But that's the big one for us. We create 10, 12 hands-on roles at competitions alone. We create 20 hands-on roles in our workshop. Some other things we're doing is changing the way we select students for things like Dean's List. We previously would mentor nominate students, but realizing, well, maybe we aren't opening ourselves up to students who are looking for that role. So maybe we'll open it up for applications and like give ourselves more insights into which kids want to be nominated. And then again, being on a large team, we do typically select juniors. That's kind of how it works. We try to select students that we think will have the best chance. So the good thing with this is, well, we can have sophomores still apply. And then when we tell them, hey, we had lots of great applications, you didn't get selected, here are a list of things that I want to see from you and work on, and I want you to apply next year. So you're giving them explicit feedback on how they can improve and ask for the opportunity again. All right, other things we were doing. So to help my own personal goal of getting more young ladies to try new things, we're doing a girls-only drive practice this year. We'll see how it goes. I asked the girls if they wanted it. They 100% were all on board with doing it, giving them an environment where like they're with their friends, it's low-key. And we're also doing things like increasing just our number of opportunities for driver's practice. Again, thinking about how we're training our students, we have our 2 drivers. One of them was a driver as a freshman, and the other one started as a sophomore, and they're going to be seniors. And every student on our team felt this year that they just automatically got selected. And I was like, that's kind of not true. We did do tryouts, and they were the best, but at the same time, I recognize that they got how much more practice than everybody else, like 20 times more hours on the robot than everybody else. So how am I going to give the other kids the opportunity to build their skill set and show off their skill set to us before they get to tryouts where it's the first time or maybe the third time they're on the robot? All right. I kind of talked about this a little bit, but just a reminder to be explicit. Again, when you might think that your team is like not exclusive. You might think your team is inclusive. But like kids don't really recognize that. They really, really need you to be explicit. So again, when you say things like, we have open driver's practice, every student's invited. Did you tell your kids that every student is invited, that they should come? Like make it very obvious, exaggeratedly obvious. All right, so the next topic is about building confidence so that when kids get those opportunities, like they feel confident to ask for more and they feel confident in the opportunities that they were given. So going back to my specific goals, I sat down with quite a few of the girls this year and just wanted to like gauge on like, hey, why were you on the media sub-team? Some of them had great answers where it's just like, no, that's all I want to do. I just want to do media. I came on the team just for more of the social aspects, and then I can do media too. Like, okay, that's great. Very clear answer of, you came here to do the media sub-team. It is not about you maybe wanting to do something else and not feeling good enough for it. Other students had different examples. You know, like they would hear phrases like, I don't think I would be good on the drive team. The electrical sub-team felt easier than the mechanical sub-team, even though I knew that I would like the mechanical sub-team better, like my friends were on this team. The main word that stood out to me when asking them these questions is intimidating. So I was like, okay, you find the mechanical sub-team intimidating, and the mentor is intimidating, and you find driving intimidating. Okay, how do we fix this? How do we challenge you a little bit? How do we like make it more relatable? So when we are building confidence, we're going to do it from two directions. We're going to do it on the individual level, build the student up, and at the same time, we're going to take those intimidating opportunities and we're going to knock them down a few pegs. So I do this specifically on my team, again, with the goal in mind of I'm trying to get more girls working on the robot. I do this with the electrical and programming sub-teams. And so kind of prepare for that imposter syndrome where I know that some kids might come in the room and feel like they don't think they have the skills. Like some kids had programming class their freshman year, some didn't. Well, they can do programming. I never did it. I don't think I'd be good at it. So every year at the beginning, we do sub-team rotations. The students get to learn about each sub-team, and then from those kind of conversations, they pick which one. Generally, they stick with it. Sometimes they switch. But in that meeting, I specifically, 2 years ago, really, really wanted to get more students programming and more girls on my sub-teams. So I kind of just experimented a little bit, and I chose very specific wording during that meeting. And those quotes are up above, so I kind of literally told them, if you like Tetris, you should join my electrical sub-team if you feel satisfied when those pieces fit together. And then I followed it up with, hey, if you like these things, you can relate to it. And then building them up to go, I don't care if you don't know anything about programming or this, I will teach you everything you need to know. So every student in that room felt like they could probably do it. They will be taught. They don't have to come in already with the skills. So that's how we bring the things down, and then we want to build our students up individually. And the only thing I could really think of to do that the most effectively is just remember constantly to give kids positive feedback. Again, you might feel like you're already doing that, and like I'm trying to think of examples of when I've specifically told students when they've been doing a good job, and I'm like, I can remember I did it for this student, and this student, and this student, but I was like, I have 20 kids on the electrical sub-team. Probably haven't said those words to 17 out of 20 of them, like at least, like maybe once a year. So with that, you're also gonna try to maybe give constructive feedback individually so they don't feel embarrassed or shy when you're trying to kind of tell them how to improve. But they also do need that constructive feedback. Like how are they supposed to know they weren't qualified to be selected for the technician role if I don't tell them what they need to work on? Like they can't get better without the opportunities and without the feedback. All right, so let's combine opportunities and building confidence together. So again, kids are going to need lots of practice. and sometimes that kind of means we, as mentors, need to push them outside of their comfort zone. This is nearly like 99% of all students on the programming sub-team have to be pushed outside of their comfort zone, and it's really hard to teach them. So if we want to try to also build confidence when doing this, I'm going to suggest 2 paths. Sometimes you can combine them, sometimes you can't do either of these things because there's no time in the build season. So for our team, we're doing both options with different examples. So option 1 is when you push them outside of their comfort zone, you are going to give them the structure to succeed. So for team 2, we are challenging the kids a little bit. We're going to make them work on all of the sub-teams so that they learn their likes and dislikes, but we're also going to give them structure and instructions. So we're starting out easy and building an every bot and making sure like they aren't just off on their own on the deep end. So the other thing you can do is you can kind of put them in a sink or swim scenario. But when you do that, we're trying to give the space to fail safely, and by safely I mean safely, and also comfortably. And then I think the biggest example that we're doing this year is having the all-girls drive practice. Like, I don't know why, but we had, out of how many girls? We had 20 to 25, maybe 20. We had 1 student try out for drive team. So asking them, like, would you go to an all-girls drive practice? And why would you go to an all-girls drive practice? Is it more comfortable? You're with your friends. It feels like more low stakes. Other things we do, especially on the programming team, is we try to give them projects that can take more time. I'm not going to come up here and lie and say I give my new students any sort of subsystem to program for the controls. Usually that's a junior or senior. But the other students do try to give them something on the competition robot if I can. And often that ends up being they do the LED project. It's a great starting project. And typically they can take kind of the whole build season. It's not something we usually add until closer to our first competition, sometimes our second competition. Other things we do is give them projects on previous competition bots, give them big challenges like, hey, over the summer, I just want you to program the bot all by yourself. If you do it, great. If you don't, there's like 0 consequences. But I'm gonna be there and I'm gonna go to the practice field. I'll sit there and put in the hours if you wanna do that. All right, so now that we've given kids opportunities, we're trying to build confidence. All of these examples that I'm giving here, they may or may not work. You may try it. It's not going to work the first time or the second time. So just want to reiterate, like repeat is going to be necessary. Kids need practice to do many things. Self-advocacy takes practice. I'm still practicing all of the time. We practice when we ask kids to speak on behalf of our team. We ask, so the last example there is, we do mock interviews for Dean's List. Our kids probably go through at least 3 mock interviews before we send them to a Dean's List interview. Pit judging, we probably do it at least once before every competition with our students. Just so like they have an opportunity to practice, to fail safely. If it goes wrong, we give them the feedback and they can try again. So other things we kind of do on our team is try to actually have open conversations with the students about what self-advocacy is. So teaching them that so that they can kind of go off into the world after and learn how to speak up for themselves. We put it in our like start of the year presentation. We kind of tell parents, like, we have 80 kids. I can't watch all of your kids. Some of you are gonna come home and your student says the words, I was bored. I didn't have anything to do. The mentors didn't give me anything to do. So we tell the parents and the students, you are responsible for your own journey. Like, if you are bored, you have to ask for something to do. That is how it works on our team. And that is the only way you're gonna get more work. That's the only way, is because I can't see 20 kids at once. I can't build up 20 kids at once. It's never, like, I personally feel like I can't do it. So other things we do is, like, when you're making announcements for those opportunities, do it in multiple ways. Some kids don't come to every meeting, at least for our team. So just remembering, like, it takes about 3 times for someone to remember an announcement. So we do Google Classroom announcements, we do in-person announcements. I try as hard as I can to speak to kids individually when I think they need a little bit of a push. And then my favorite one on here, I don't think we do it enough on our team. I do this at work actually, which is tag teaming feedback for kids, especially positive feedback. And I'll also call this like sneaky feedback. When you are praising someone and you're saying, hey, you did a good job on this, think about your relationship with them and like, do they trust you? Like, I was talking to a coworker literally this week and I said, hey, like, I don't know if I'm doing a good job. Like, am I doing enough? And I was like, when you tell me I'm doing a good job, it's different, right? You know me, you know every task I do every day of the week. When my boss gives me praise, he does the same thing. And I was like, but I just need somebody else to tell me somewhere else. I just want to feel seen a little bit. Like just to check in, like, is my work being seen outside of my immediate department? So on a team, I would start with giving the feedback yourself, but when the next opportunity arises, you could ask another mentor, maybe a student lead, and ask them specifically to give that student that feedback. Hey, can you tell so-and-so that they had one of the best drive times? And like, can you like make sure that they come again next time? And don't tell them that I told you this because I've already told them this. Be explicit. All right, so one of the tools we are kind of implementing to help with getting kids opportunities, giving them feedback constructively, and getting them to learn how to specifically ask for the opportunities that will get them the roles that they want. So first of all, this is just hopefully going to help us track which kids have which skills. But what I'm hoping to do, and I wrote this like last week, so this is not the final one, and I'm sure we'll share some of our other ones that we built up. So I threw this together at the last second. But what I did specifically is in the gray vertical slots, I put in some of the roles that the kids are kind of looking for, like, hey, what does it take? What are the skills you need to work on a competition robot? If you're on our electrical sub-team, what are the things you need to do to be scheduled in our pit crew? What are the things you need to do to come be invited to our Friday night load-in, because it's a smaller group of students? What do you need to do independent competition bot wiring? We will send the robot home with kids, with only trusted kids. So like, what do you need to do to get that opportunity? What do you need to do to be pit lead, technician? Hoping that using something like this written down will give the kids feedback, give them written feedback that they can reference, that it's not just them remembering, and giving them specific items that they can ask for. So when a kid says, why wasn't I chosen for like the Friday night load-in, I can say, hey, like, you just are missing a few of these skills. Next time what I want you to do is tell me that you want to do the load-in night, and I also want you to come in and find your gaps and tell me, hey, like, I missed training for inspection. Can I get a redo? And for me, that's super easy. I got lots of students. I got 20 students on my sub-team. I can tell one of the student leads to give them an extra training. I can also use this, because it's written down, to train my lead students to help find the gaps, and like, they can help kind of be mini mentors a little bit more. So I don't have to pay attention to 20 kids. Maybe I can pay attention to 5 or 10 kids, and then all of our seniors, they can start paying attention to the new students, and I'm like, you are going to be responsible for getting all of your students getting this matrix filled out. That is your job. You are going to help me find the gaps. So it's not only giving kids opportunities, but it's giving the older kids more opportunities as well. All right, so I will spend just a few minutes kind of talking about student to mentor feedback and like helping students talk to you about their problems and things. I hope that this is maybe obvious, but sometimes you just need a reminder that like different students need different ways of giving feedback. Some will fill out a survey, some will ignore every email that you send them. So we do multiple things. We do team surveys. We will also do a team feedback meeting in a large group. I specifically also always do small focus groups with the girls, both small groups and individually, because they feel more comfortable talking about more difficult subjects or things that they individually want. And again, that is because my personal goal is on one of those first pages. So my goal is getting more support for the women on our team. And then the last bullet, we don't do this, but I was writing our student handbook, and as one does, I stole the student handbook from Citrus, and I saw in their handbook that they had a student advocate role, and it was, I think, 2 parents who were parents of alumni, so not current parents, to be a kind of a separate path for students to go to for help and help navigate. So kind of think of it as like maybe HR a little bit. I'm just kind of guessing. I would love to hear from them how that's working out for them. All right, so when you do get feedback, it's also important to do something with the feedback. So you're asking kids to kind of maybe step out of their comfort zone, and if you don't really do anything, they might just see that their effort was wasted. So anytime you do get feedback, try to implement at least one valuable change from their feedback, like just one thing. And even for us, sometimes I put it back on them. So in our whole team feedback meeting, one of the students, was like, "Oh, well, we need to cheer more." And I was like, "Cool. You just volunteered to be the cheer captain for the team, and if you don't want to do that, that's totally fine, but you are now responsible for nominating and finding a student who's going to do that next year. Like, you are going to help solve my problems." It doesn't just have to be mentors fixing and solving all the problems. And then the last bullet, this is something that I've really appreciated from our team. We're not a perfect team. We have tons and tons of issues all the time. And to me, mentor-to-mentor feedback and support is key. It's not just students who struggle with self-advocacy. Like I said, I've struggled with it. We have new mentors who don't really always know where they fit in, who feel like nervous about giving negative criticisms about our team. And it's like, hey, no, like, you just need to do it. Like, when you tell me this, like, if you don't tell me the thing, I can't fix it for you. So just kind of a reminder to like look out for your fellow mentors. Ask them how they're doing one-on-one, especially your new mentors on your team. So I will say every time that I've practiced this presentation, I probably talked at half the speed, and I never made it within the time slot, but we do have a lot of time left. So I did want to kind of throw this back at you. This isn't super related to the self-advocacy topic, but it is an issue that we kind of came up this year, and it is 100% related to my favorite goal that I like to talk about, which is supporting the women on our team. So for our off-season events, the Team 177 students run the whole show. They do pit work, they do drive team, they do strategy, they do drive coaching, they do everything. So this year we attended Battle Cry, and we chose to rotate drive team members for each match. Some students might get multiple matches, but it's a new group of students doing all of the roles pretty much every match. The lead student who is making the schedule, he suggested themed matches. So one match is all freshmen, one match is all sophomores, one match is all girls. So I was the one who brought up the concern. It made me a little bit nervous, and maybe I needed to like step out and think about this a bit, which is like, am I setting those students up for failure? Like, we have had issues in the past where like we've had like sexism among the students on the team. Again, I have 80 kids. They don't do it in front of me, but like I can't control what they do outside of our meetings always. So it was a big concern for me where I was like, if we have an all-girls drive team for a match, and I was like, what if they fail? Are they gonna get made fun of? Like other than, fixing the systemic culture issues, which we are always working on every year, I think, I just wanted to like get some advice from the other mentors of like, is this a good idea or not? So I wish I kind of thought about these questions when we were having this discussion a few months ago. But as I was writing the presentation, I was kind of thinking that this fell in line with one of my other slides. Like, are we setting those girls up for success? Or are we at the very least, allowing them to fail in a safe space? So I did not expect to be in such a large room. But if anyone here wants to volunteer, any suggestions, yeah?
I wonder why do I say the girls instead of the freshmen and sophomores?
Not have an all-girls rotation?
No, it's the contrary. If you have a concern about the girls, we laugh at it. Why not the freshmen? Why isn't it an overriding concern?
Oh, why wasn't it an overall concern? I think because we were doing it for all of the classes, it was a little less of a concern of like an equality thing. Like, we weren't doing an all-boys rotation either, right? We were kind of highlighting the all-girls team versus every class gets one. Thank you. Yeah.
So feedback is ask your team what their goals are, because if your goal is to be competitive, this isn't good. if your goal is to be inclusive, and that's your goal, everybody gets to try, everybody gets to try out, and you're treating it as that goal, yes, do this. But make sure what you're doing applies to the team goal. And make sure the kids are the ones helping determine that team goal.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. Yeah.
Make sure that your team agrees on the goal you're striving towards.
So we should ask ourselves, is our goal to be competitive? Is our goal to be inclusive at this event? Which it was. We were trying to get new students who've never driven before drive time. I think, Norm, you had your hand up?
So, what's the purpose of Battle Cry as an off-season for your program?
For my program, it's for me to allow the students to get the opportunity to run everything themselves. I try as hard, I try not to step in on these things. I kind of try to let them make as many of the decisions as they can. So, yeah.
So I would say that having the different theme matches is absolutely appropriate.
Yeah.
Because it's all about learning and getting in different opportunities and experiences.
Yep.
My team went to Indiana with Lights Invitational. I don't coach. That's the only tournament I don't coach at. I sit back and I watch and observe. Our kids are going to win. It's a brand new drive team. They're going to play and be successful with the drive coach, but they know they're going to they know what their goal and role is. They're competing in tournaments this weekend. There will be 6 different drive teams competing in matches today and tomorrow because it's an opportunity for some of them to experience both. I think that's perfectly fine. Perfect.
Yeah.
So, I would say, unless this was something that you decided to do that morning of Battle Cry, if you had a chance to talk to the people who are going to be on the individual themed drive teams to say, if you feel unsure about this, and it would help you feel better, and you had a chance to do any practice, to get them to practice beforehand. The practice being on a drive team, to do that coordination kind of thing beforehand, because you might have had people who didn't know how to communicate very well. And that, independent of the girls or not, many times, and again, it's fair or not, sometimes I say that girls need more chance to communicate explicitly and has a better solution at the end, but they need that specific chance to have those conversations.
Okay. So I'll leave that into what we actually did. So a lot of the conversation revolved around finding solutions that maybe we didn't need to find in the first place, which was hey, well, what if we give them an experienced drive coach? Well, it's well, that defeats the purpose of it being an all-girls team. Other suggestions were just well, we just tell the kids that it needs to be an inclusive environment. That's that. They should just cut it out if that's going to happen. And I was well, maybe we're putting more emphasis on this now. So what we actually did is I just talked to the girls and I said, hey, do you want to have an all-girls rotation? And they just said no. And it was specific ones. We don't have that many girls who had gone to some of the practices. So their answer was, well, I've been practicing with so-and-so, and he and I were planning on driving together. And I was okay, well, if you two are paired together, there's not enough students even to make an all-girls team. And maybe that kind of squashed the whole themes together, where if we wanted to kind of set the kids up, they had been practicing what the individuals wanted, which is why we asked them, was to practice and do matches with the kids that they practiced with. They felt more comfortable. And I was that's great. That's because you guys know how to communicate together. It's more fun for you because you're with your friends that you chose. So that was the example. We still have about 5 more minutes if anyone has questions. Otherwise, I don't mind if you want to just get and walk around and go to the bathroom because our breaks are really quick. Yeah.
On your skills matrix, students check off because do you make those lists public for the whole team, or is it more or less private groups?
So I've been thinking about that. It would be obviously easier if it was public, and I think it needs to be accessible to some of the student leads. For the electrical sub-team, and I'll keep talking about that one because that's the example. I have 3 seniors who are great, and all 3 of them do have leadership roles. One of them is tends to train new students. One of them like tends to run like robot wiring, and one of them tends to do some of the more organization stuff, even if only one of the three has the official like sub-team role. So it's like I want all three of them to kind of have access to it because I need them. I have so many kids, I need their help. I don't have any other mentors on my sub-team. And at the same time, I've been thinking about this. I was like, well, I don't want every kid to have access to everything. I don't want them to like think that they're better than other students just because like they made it to one more training. So I'm planning, I think, I don't know if we'll do this, is to make it non-visible, and you have to search your own results based on like your student ID. The students' IDs are random, so they don't know anyone else's student ID number. So I think that's probably going to be the best thing for individuals, and then maybe give more access to the leads if I can. That would be my goal. If we can't do that, I think it might just need to be accessible to everyone because I can't do this on my own. Yeah.
We had a similar conversation in terms of traffic outreach hours. Our team has a ton of outreach, and it was like, you track your own hours and you get signed off on them, and it results in some number of hours. We turned it into a leaderboard kind of on accident. It was just a spreadsheet tracking hours and then a sum column. And it was like, oh, I can get more hours than the next person over there. I want more hours. And it did not turn into I'm better or I'm more important or devoted or whatever. It was just a fun way to track progress towards, our goal for the team is 5,000 hours. This person's got 128. This person's got 126. Maybe I can find another outreach event to start to get some more hours. So we are also working on our own skills matrix, so I have my list of yours, but we think we're pretty sure that we're going to stick with make it public because kids love to compete, and it hasn't turned into a like I'm better than you. It's just a how can I find more ways to get more points thing. It's work all this.
Yeah.
If you do all girls drive practice, do you also have all women mentors there? And if you didn't have enough women mentors, how would you solve that problem?
So we have 2 current women on our team. Until this year, it was mostly just me. I think I would like a little bit of support. I don't think I would want to do it by myself. I haven't asked the other mentor if she's definitely going or not. I might ask one of the drive coaches. All of our current mentors, we've had a women drive coach before, but all of our current mentors who've been drive coaches are all men. And I think I might want to bring one of them to help me. And I've been considering also letting our current driver and operator, who are both boys, come for the first 20 minutes to give lessons, so that I'm not just throwing the kids out there, I'm actually teaching them how to drive better and giving them more skills. And I can't do that by myself, even though I'm the only, I'm gonna assume I'm the only woman being there. So for me, it's, I guess, more important about getting the kids the skills than making it a women event, just because I feel like I don't quite have the resources to do so. Yeah.
I'll say one thing that can help out with that I've found with getting kids the confidence to try driving is I jump on the sticks for a few minutes and maybe you drive worse than I need to. It's a very low bar, and someone saying, well, I better than Kyle.
That's a good point.
I found that actually helps quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm a terrible driver. That'll work excellently. All right, any more questions? Yeah.
So, when you asked that question, there was a concern about possible negative regarding all doors rotation. Are you creating a self-fulfilling prophecy kind of thing? Is it something you're sticking with your mind?
Yeah, that's actually a question we asked ourselves is we're well, if we bring up the possible negatives, are we just teaching the kids that there are possible negatives? So I definitely think bringing up the concern could have been creating a self-fulfilling prophecy by bringing attention to it. I could have created a negative scenario. Something though that's important is the context of our team, and we have had a few isolated issues with sexism on the team. We've had a kid who was nominated for Dean's List 2 years in a row, and students and parents had made negative comments about why did that student get picked, and they had said comments like she's a girl. So knowing that we've had issues, I wanted to kind of pre-address it or just work and knowing the culture on my team that I'm trying to improve, you know? So I definitely think I could have created a more negative scenario than I needed to. All right, I think 40 minutes we've hit. Thank you.